Good morning, students. We've been studying nomadic empires, and where we have been concentrating primarily on one of the greatest military generals and invaders of all time, Genghis Khan. Okay, he is definitely one of the most famous men in history, along with Alexander the Great. Okay, and now, students, we also saw how his early life was full of struggle and extreme hardship because he did not inherit any kind of a kingdom. Okay, so he had to build everything from the scratch. So today we start with the second paragraph of page 111, that is just about the Kiltai of 1206. Genghis Khan had reorganized the Mongol people into an effective disciplinary military force that facilitated the success of his future campaigns. The first of his concerns was to conquer China, divided at this time into three realms. The Haisya, people of Tibetan origin, ruled in the northern China from Peking, Tibetan origin in the northwest provinces, the Zurchen, whose Jin dynasty, guys, essentially what we are talking about. These things, of course, you can remember the names, these Chinese names, which anyway are quite difficult to. But you have to understand one very special thing about the nomadic tribes, whether we talk about Attila or whether we talk about the Mongols. And students, you have to understand one very important thing, that in a kingdom or in an empire which has been there for many years, they already have a system of governance, which could be an administrative system or a social system, military hierarchy. All those institutions and structures are already in place. So they just need one efficient ruler, a good administrator who also happens to be a good military man and a good general, and he more or less can continue with that thing. Because of those, he can just rule for another time, and you can also reign in a period of prosperity for the people of his empire. But it's extremely challenging when you talk about nomads who want to attempt the same thing. You have to understand that, because those institutions, those great structures of which are whether related to politics or economics, they are not there. They probably have never heard about Minister for Finance, right? Unlike the other sedentary or stationary empires, where they would have minister for this, they would have someone responsible for this, that every structure, institution has been existing for centuries. It is already in place. What you need essentially for the system to work efficiently and to yield great results is someone who happens to be a great guy sitting on the throne. But here it is, he has to be a great guy, of course, but then he has to, he has to be a superman of sorts. That is why it is extremely challenging. That is why Attila could do it, but not his sons, and the Han Empire could not last even one generation after Attila. And here, Genghis Khan had to again. He had learned from the mistakes of the other nomads who had come before him, and he understood that he would have to devise a mechanism whereby these institutions are created, right, so that it provides greater stability of to his empire, which has been made after enormous amount of hardships and enormous amount of killing and of his own brothers and his cousins and everything. So he understood that the significance of creating and building institutions. So, coming to the last paragraph here, after the defeat in 1218 of the Karakita, who controlled the Tian Shan Mountains northwest of China, Mongols' dominions reached the Amudarya and the states of Transoxiana. You remember we had discussed Transoxiana. Those are the areas of Central Asia. Okay, and Khwarizm, Sultan Muhammad, the ruler of Khwarizm. Guys, when you study history, you would often come across the name of Khwarizm. Not just in case of Mongols, you would study about them when it comes to the Mughals, when it comes to the Turks, when it comes to the Uzbeks. Khwarizm is, even Persians or Iranians for that matter, Khwarizm was always very important. And the reason for that is, students, Khwarazm is, if you look at the map of West Asia, it is right in the south of Aral Sea. Aral Sea is a lake, students. If you're again looking at the map, then to the right of Caspian Sea is Aral Sea. Okay, and it's south of this. Now, Khwarazm is very important because in a land which is only about desert, some large water bodies are around it, and it has historically been a very, very popular oasis. Okay, where you have greenery and you have water in great, if not in abundance, definitely in good quantity. So it was always very important. It was an extremely important stopover for all the trading routes. Every trading route, right from Silk Route to any trading route which travels to West Asia or Europe, they would pass through Khorazm, because the traders knew that they would always find water for themselves, they would find water for their animals, the camels. So it was always very, very important. It was a rich place, it was a place bustling with activity. Now, Khwarizm felt the fury of Genghis Khan's rage when he executed Mongol envoys. Now, I would love to elaborate, but I would like to keep it crisp here. Genghis Khan has had sent his envoys to to Sultan Muhammad, the ruler of Khwarazm. But then this crazy guy ultimately executed the Mongol envoys. I think there were about 11 or 12 of them. And naturally, Genghis Khan was furious, and he actually took vengeance in a very, very cruel manner, because there was naturally, because of his Genghis Khan's own temperament, and also because of the fact that even among enemies, you never you never harm the envoys, because envoys are considered to be mere messengers of their masters. So you do not vent your fury, on the envoys and then kind of torture them or something. Even the greatest of the great enemies, they have treated the envoys with a great amount of respect. So, in the campaigns between 1219 and 1221, the great cities, Otrar, Bukhara, Samarkand, Balkh, Gurganj, Mer, Nisharpur, and Herat surrendered to the Mongol forces. Towns these are all areas of Central Asia and present-day Afghanistan that resisted were devastated. At Nishapur, where a Mongol prince was killed during the siege operation, Genghis Khan commanded that the town should be laid waste in such a manner that the site should be plowed on, and in the exaction of vengeance, even the cats and dogs were not spared, because in Nishapur, one of the Mongol prince had been killed, and Genghis Khan was furious. So you can imagine, if even the dogs and cats were not left alive, what kind of fate must have fallen on humans. Okay, so please turn the leaf. What is here? Yeah, these numbers, please go through them. Mongol forces in pursuit of Sultan Muhammad pushed into Azerbaijan, defeated Russian forces at the Crimea, and encircled the Caspian Sea. Another wing followed the Sultan's sons Jalaluddin into Afghanistan and Sindh province at the banks of Indus. Genghis Khan considered returning to Mongolia through North India. Guys, this is where it gets interesting. Through that, Genghis Khan wanted to return to Mongolia through India, through North India, that is. So you can imagine, if he was returning through India, what fate would have fallen on Indians. But the heat and the natural habitat of the ill portents and the ill portents, that is, ill signs reported by the shaman soothsayer, made him change his mind. Students, you have to understand one thing. Even today, in fact, we do it. We claim that yes, science has made enormous progress, and we are also very, very scientifically inclined, and we believe in our own karma, sharma, and all that garbage talk. But in the end, we all believe in Pandiji and Pujari and Tantric and some great omens and Kundali and Bhagya, and all of that we believe in even today, in spite of having access to so much of technology which makes life very, very predictable in most of the areas. So you can imagine the situation 800 or 900 years ago, and whether in the and in, say 2000 or 3000 or 4000 years ago, when the Roman, Greek, or the Egyptian empires, all of them, all the rulers did not do anything without consulting their astrologers or someone who would tell them about the good signs or the bad signs. And since you'd be surprised to know, even as late as 1980s, the U.S. President Ronald Reagan was, very fond of astrologers, and he would consult from time to time. Adolf Hitler did from time to time about people who could and who would advise him on what would be the best time for certain ventures and certain decisions to be taken or executed, for that matter. So Genghis Khan wanted to return to Mongolia, his Mongol land, through northern part of India, but then his fortune tellers told him that yes, it might not be a great idea, it would be unlucky for him. So he should not enter India, the northern India, and that is one of the reasons. But then there are other reasons also that are floated by historians. The second reason that is floated is that India's weather. All these areas which we are talking about, and which we often read about in this chapter, all these areas are cold areas. So Mongols, definitely, they have been used to the sub-zero temperatures, and that's what they prefer. And of course, they were also exposed to the warm temperatures, but then those warm temperatures used to last barely for a month or something, and definitely not as hot as India. They were warm temperatures, India has hot temperatures. And that is the reason why Genghis Khan was not very keen about entering India. And the third very important reason, which is also floated by the historians, is that India at that point in time was ruled by very, very powerful rulers. Delhi Sultanate, whether it was Iltutmish or whether it was Balban, all these rulers were extremely, extremely powerful rulers. And I wish I had the board in front of me, and I would have shown you that all the invaders of India have entered and historically entered through Khyber Pass. Today, that Khyber Pass is in Pakistan, Afghanistan area. They all have entered India through Khyber Pass, because that is the only. Otherwise, it's all Himalayas, and massive rivers. So it is very difficult to enter through those places, right? So they all have entered through Khyber Pass, because you have the Karakoram ranges, Himalayas, and all of that. I wish I could have shown it on the board. So all the Delhi rulers, and the strong rulers, I mean, and the emperors of Delhi, they always controlled that Khyber Pass. Okay, to ensure that yes, the invader can be stopped there, right and there. Okay, and the rulers of Delhi, when Genghis, that is the contemporaries of Genghis Khan in Delhi at that point in time, were very, very, they were themselves very good military generals. They were very strong rulers, very administratively very, very solid. And that is why, because India itself, at least northern India itself, was not being ruled by weak rulers, or the so India naturally was not an easy fruit to kind of catch, or it was not a dropping fruit that would fall from the tree at any point in time, and just an invader, whether Mongol or anyone for that matter, they just need to come and probably shake the trunk, and then the fruits would start falling. No, India was going to be a huge challenge, and that is the reason why, not that Genghis Khan was afraid of Indians, but then he didn't like oppressive heat. His fortune tellers told him it might not be a good idea, it might be very unlucky for him, and all these things together. Probably he was also feeling homesick after a very prolonged military campaign, so probably he wanted to rush home. Right. So that is how it is, students. Tomorrow we shall continue. Thank you.